would be productivity. If you don't have sufficient productivity, you can never be profitable. So productivity and efficiency in production, may that be in the delivery of a service, may that be in the actual production of some sort of a product. When we go back to what John Randall did, a review on marketing, right? How effectively you manage your marketing inputs will affect your productivity. Okay, if your marketing inputs are not very well directed, then you won't get enough business. Hence, you're wasting a lot of money on marketing without sufficient return on the investment that you have made in marketing. Customer satisfaction. You can do great stuff as long as you think it's great. But if the customers don't think it's great, you won't have a good output. So the customer must be satisfied in order for you to have a good output. What we want to examine at the comprehensive exam, as previously mentioned, is can you apply an understanding of POM principles to business problems? We will give you some problems, and we want to test you, we want to examine you, we would like to assess you. Can you effectively apply all the theories that you have learned in POM to solve these problems? The problems often involve, for example, when you have a company expansion. It's relatively easy once you have settled down to management and your company is consistent in size and configuration. Management is not that difficult. But what happens if you go through a tremendous growth period? Can you handle 200% more staff? 150% more of this? Company contraction or downsizing. Sometimes the good gets sorted out from the bad when there is an economic crisis. Please, no mobile phone, please. Okay, it's hard sometimes. When you had the economic crisis in 1997, a lot of companies went out of business. Now, not entirely to their own fault, some of them, but most of them that survived 1997 did so because the managers at the top realized times have changed, economic conditions have changed, and they had the foresight, the vision, you may want to call it, to be able to react very quickly to a changed external environment, and they were able to effectively downsize their operations and survived. Some of them even grew. Some companies expanded during the retraction of the economy, while other companies failed miserably. Why is that? Because the managers at the top of some companies were never prepared to deal with downsizing, contraction, or as we call maybe a storm on the horizon. They are captains of a boat when the water is flat and the sun is shining and everything is perfect. The minute the rain comes, the hail comes, the thunder comes, the flash comes, and the wave comes, their boat turns over, meaning the company goes out of business. So we will test that. Quality issues. When a company is dealing with quality issues, very much we are going to check, have you understood the principle of TQM? Because this is currently the most misunderstood management theory in Asia, is TQM. Why? Everybody wants it, but nobody wants to put the mechanisms in place to make it happen. They all talk about we want TQM, but that TQM comes with empowerment, comes with employees thinking, with giving authority and responsibility. Most managers don't like that. Oh no, I keep all the authority and responsibility. I do all the thinking, but we do TQM. Not possible. So please go back to TQM and fully understand what it is that it entails for you to do a good total quality control system. New leadership and goals. you should, after POM, be sufficiently prepared to understand the role of a new leader. A new leader is not a dictator that sits on the top and tells people what to do. A new leader is almost like a politician that goes out and wins support for his or her ideas and tries to create consensus among the entire ranks of an organization, and through consensus building, through supplying a good, clear vision and being able to adapt this vision to fit the ideas of many people, will lead a company forward. The classical management functions, I think you should know. Plot core, we don't want to go too much into it. But very importantly is that when you apply plot core, it is important that you don't leave out the controlling process. From my own experience as a manager, and from having seen hundreds of junior managers embarking on their careers, the point that most managers lack on is control. They're all great in planning. They all love to plan. Leading is exciting, organizing, okay, directing, very good, coordinating sometimes, but controlling, most of the people don't like to control, because control means watching over somebody or something, and that's not something nice, okay, because it means showing distrust to a person. But it is a very, very important part of management. If you don't control, you will not succeed. And what you cannot control, you cannot measure, therefore people won't do it. So you have to be very careful when you start your plot core process that your planning is set up in such a way that the outcomes are controllable. Sometimes people plan things so elaborately, so complicated, sounds so great on paper, but at the end of the day, how can you control? Very difficult, huh? So please make sure, don't forget controlling. Okay, don't need to do that. Let's talk a little bit about managerial roles. Remember, a manager has to wear several different hats. A manager cannot just be good in one area. A manager must be good as a whole. And I think if you remember, you remember Rusty Pierce from the Gillette Company? Silence means we remember nothing. Rusty Pierce, remember the woman with the funky hairdo in the ugly blue costume that we showed you videos with Henry Mintzberg? The Harvard Business Series? Ninoy? Okay, I know you had to remember a lot, so I don't blame you. But please try to remember that, because he said something which is very, very true. A manager that is strong in just one area is not a manager. A manager must be a well-rounded product. It must be an entire gestalt. It must be 100% whole. So a manager that may be has good interpersonal skills, but has lousy informational skills, may not be a good manager. So as a manager, you have to do many things. You have to be able to forge relationships, maintain relationships, build new relationships through interpersonal roles. You have informational roles. How much information do you pass on? To whom? When? How? So you are a communicator. You are like a conductor for communication in the informational roles. You have to pass information to your employees. You have to pass information to managers at the same level across the organization. You have to pass information to superiors. And you have to pass information to people outside of the organization. May that be customers, suppliers, whatever. Decisional roles. A manager must take decisions. Whether they are the right decisions, we don't know at the moment, but we have to take a decision. So managers that don't take decisions are usually not good managers. So you have to be decisive. You have to have some sort of a thought process that allows you to take a decision. And we talked about that in POM. How do you come up with a decision? You take an opportunistic decision when your back is against the wall, when you're facing a problem. You A, negotiate your way out of it, and B, you take opportunistic decisions where you take the opportunity and you just run with it. You base decisions on facts. You base decisions on analysis. You base decisions on first impressions. You almost never will base a decision on hearsay. Somebody said that person said, the other person said. That's not a good foundation of a decision. So you have to be clear about your decisional role. And you have a formal role. There are certain things that you as a manager have to do and cannot delegate. For example, if you have an employee that is close to you, that somebody died in that family, you cannot delegate to your secretary, go and attend the funeral. This is something you have to do yourself. You have to, an opening of a branch of your company, if you are the CEO of the company, you can't delegate that. Has certain functions are just not delegatable. So you very much have a formal role within your organization that you need to fulfill. Okay, we talked about that already. So clearly, you will spend the majority of your time will actually be spent with subordinate and peers, people at the same level or below, and a very small portion of your time will be spent with superiors. Information role, okay. Decisional roles, I want to elaborate on that a little bit. As an entrepreneur, you have to take opportunistic decisions. Sometimes, when you're in charge of a business, you run across an opportunity. And if you don't grab that opportunity for you and your company, somebody else will. Most likely your competition. So sometimes, despite the fact that we teach you to do SWOT analysis and, evaluate the value chain and Porter's 5 forces and I don't know what, sometimes you have to do this on the fly, which means on the go. Sometimes you just don't have the time to sit down and go through a formal planning process of several months, because by the time you finish plan for the new opportunity, somebody else has taken it from you. So as an entrepreneur, decisions are sometimes taken rather quickly, shall we say. That doesn't mean they are taken without consideration to SWOT, to risk analysis, to all of that. No, but the SWOT analysis may be written down on a napkin instead of a computer diagram. The risk analysis may be written on the back of a restaurant bill, because that's what you have at the moment. So you're doing it on the go. You're taking the opportunity. A disturbance handler, as an entrepreneur or as a decisional role, as a manager, you have to handle disturbances. You have to settle conflicts. It's very important. And I know there is a cultural issue here. In Thailand, you don't have conflicts in Thailand. Of course you do, but you don't. Officially, you don't. Officially, everybody smiles and is happy together. Officially. But unofficially, what happens is, behind the smiles is a fist in a pocket and a bad feeling in the heart. And nobody deals with any conflicts. That's why you can see, for example, I'll give you an example. You have somebody that has been caught with corruption. Okay? That person is not fired, because firing means conflict. That person is transferred to an inactive position. Okay, that's avoiding the conflict. The problem with that is that it's a drain on your resources, because the person still gets a salary, the person still needs a desk, you have what you have done is you have ignored the issue. As an effective manager, you cannot afford to do that. Imagine if a private company would not fire people. That would be really bad, because then instead of 100 employees, you may end up with 200-300 employees. You could not afford to pay. So if you're the boss and there is a disturbance within your own camp, you need to be able to handle that. You need to be able to say, this is the way it's going to be, because otherwise your company is busy fighting each other instead of fighting the competition. So clearly handling disturbances, handling situations that are not nice, that's part of a manager's job and has to do with decisional roles. Resource allocator. You as the boss allocate the resources. Clearly everybody wants more. Sales and marketing wants more. Research wants more. Logistic wants more. Operation needs more money. But the reality is there is only so much. So you have to decide what is more important and allocate money to that. Whether you're correct or not, we don't know. And at the end of the day, you are a negotiator, because when you are negotiating, it has to do with deals. Okay? Sometimes deals are lost at the negotiation table. Sometimes deals are won at the negotiation tables, and sometimes deals are messed up at the negotiation table, meaning you may have won the deal, but the deal is such a mixture of things that it's not worth having. Just recently in my company, somebody came back and says, yes, we have a deal. And when I looked at the deal, I said, please go and cancel it, because it's not worth servicing it. It's such a mess. The client is going to be unhappy. We are going to be unhappy. It's a lose-lose, not a win-win. And the person said, but I won the deal. I said, yes, but we will lose the battle in the future, so cancel. So I overrode the deal. They signed in the morning, and in the afternoon we canceled, because it's not worth it. So you have to negotiate. You have to be able to negotiate inside your organization, outside of your organization, for the benefit of your organization. Implications for management. Information sharing is critical to effective management. Many times in an organization, people say that's secret. You know, she can't know. He can't know. But if he can't know, he can't help me. So please, the old paradigm is everything is top secret and only top management knows. If only top management knows, only top management thinks. So you have an organization of 300, 400, 500 people that is led by a brain of 2 or 3 people. Brilliant. That's the equivalent of 2 or 3 horsepowers in a car. It won't move very fast. But if you have 300 people that can contribute to the organization, then you have a 300 horsepowered vehicle. That's the equivalent of a Porsche Carrera. So you can overtake, you can move, you can do things. So you must share information to people so that they can participate in decisions and give ideas. Pressures to respond to urgency reduce focus on goals and outcomes. When we are pushed because something is urgent, remember Stephen Covey's framework of urgent and important, or urgent and not important? Okay. When we are engaged in urgent but not important matters, usually we forget our goals, we forget that we have to manage outcomes, and we just want to deal with that urgent situation. That may not be so smart, because if we do that, we may not be profitable, we are not 100% efficient. As a matter of fact, we are not very efficient at all, and we squander resources. So please be careful when you respond to urgent but not important situations. You should do that, but still keep a focus on organizational outcomes, and you should keep a focus on organizational goals, and sometimes you choose not to engage in this urgent situation, because it will cost you more and harm you more on the organizational side than what it's worth. Management requires balance of art and science, reflection and action. You can't have action all the time. If you have action all the time, you spin out of control. It's like when you're in a car and you push the accelerator very hard and your tires, they're turning and black smoke is coming from your car. That's great when you're a 16-year-old kid and you want to show off to your girlfriend. Unfortunately, the car isn't going anywhere except burning tires. That would be you with too much action. A manager that is smart has traction control, that has a certain amount of controlled action, but only so much that the tires can still grip the road, the asphalt, and catapult the car forward. So please make sure that you are not one of the managers that spin the wheels, because you're not being very effective. You need to think and go. Think and go. Don't just go and think. I think the sequence here is very important. Think and go, not go and think. Okay. An organization influences managerial behavior very much. Doesn't matter who you are as a manager, but the organization you work for will influence your working style, your working method, will influence how you do business tremendously. You can be a very successful, hard-driving manager. When you work for a government organization, you will slow down, because otherwise the government organization cannot follow you. So you have to adapt your working style to the environment to a certain extent. If you adapt it too much, then you become ineffective. But you have to adapt it somehow that you're still radical for that organization, but maybe different than... give you an example. When I manage here in Thailand, I manage totally different than if I was to manage in my native country, Switzerland. Or when I think back to my time in the US, if I would employ my management strategies or my management style that I had in the US here in Thailand, I think I would have been killed a long time ago here in Thailand, and I would not stand here in front of you today. So I had to adapt. So clearly a manager is adapting, or his management behavior changes within the organization he's in. The role of leaders varies in different organizations. Some organizations, they have different style of leadership, and you as a leader have to adapt that. You cannot, whether you manage EGAT, the Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, or you manage Siam Commercial Bank, I guarantee you, even if the leader would have been the same, their styles would have been entirely different. Because the organization is different. And the role of leadership within EGAT is different than the role of leadership within Siam Commercial Bank. Needs for leadership are changing. Leaders in the past used to be autocratic dictators. These are the people that were leaders. Today, a good leader is not an autocratic dictator. Today, a good leader is a person that deserves respect, not because of a family name or because of age or color of hair or seniority, but because of the knowledge that they have, and because of the ability to communicate, and because of the personal managerial capability that this person brings. That's a modern leader of today. People trust that person because displaying characteristics that are very well rounded, is able to build consensus, is able to overcome difficult situations, is able to be almost like an ajahn, a teacher. A good leader today is somebody that can teach people, that can pass on knowledge, that can bridge difficult situations, that has outstanding personal characteristics, and is a person that is viewed by the majority of people that he or she is supposed to lead as trustworthy. That's very important. Otherwise, if your leader is not trustworthy, why follow him or her? Okay, teams. Teamworking is very important these days. As in the past, when I started to work, it was more individual work that was important. Today, of course, that is changing dramatically. Companies are now deploying the team working approach, and in a team, each person is their own manager. If you take teamwork to all it really could be, because there are various stages in team working. Okay, but if you take team working to the extreme, you can have the team that hires, fires, and decides on pay increases, such as the Ford Lexington plant. Remember that? The video very early on in Principle of Management, where people came to work at 7 o'clock in the morning in some sort of an automotive part factory, and nobody punched the time clock. And you had these people that the factory was organized as many factories within the factory. You remember that video? Those people decide on hiring their own team members. They decide on pay increases. They monitor their own performance. They do everything by themselves. This is the ideal situation. This is the ultimate form of team working. Self-improvement on company's time, very important. We need to develop people, and usually people are only developed when they are improved on company's time, because there needs to be a balance in life between work and private time and off time. And if you try to develop people on their off time, it's not as beneficial as when you say, let's close Wednesday and Thursday and do some seminars on Wednesday and Thursday, or I invite you to attend a seminar, but during the week, during your work time. Good, you will comprehend a hell of a lot more. Managers as teaching and helping staff grow. In the old days, managers used to be there to control staff and to discipline staff. Today, normally peer pressure in a modern company, peer pressure, the pressure from people on the same level is enough to keep new staff in line, to make sure that new staff are doing the right thing, and you as a manager become more like a counselor, like a person that will help a person grow and learn on the job, and you're almost like a godmother or godfather. You're trying to help people along instead of just the old-fashioned manager. Set vision and standards clearly. Teams have to have a vision, they have to have a standard. Work smarter, not harder. And people want to work in a successful organization. Overall, I mean, think about it. Of any organization, the majority of people want to do the right thing. They're good people. And in every society, doesn't matter where you are, you have the majority are good, you have some okay, and you have a minute percentage that is small, that is bad. It doesn't matter if they're Swiss, Americans, Pakistani, Thai, Japanese, whatever. Okay? Now, what we as an organization have to recognize is that we should not punish all the majority of good people for a few of the bad people. That's very important. It's like the time clock thing, you know. 96, 97% of the people are on time. But yet we make them all clock in. It's the 2 or 3% that come late. Why don't we just take the people out and talk to them that are late? You know? So, please, we have to recognize that people want to work in a successful organization and would like to contribute to the success of an organization, and we have to capture that want of these people and channel it through good teamwork and get proper inputs into the organization. The principles for effective teamwork are clear goal vision shared by members. If you don't know what you're fighting for, you're not going to fight. It's the reality. If you're working for a company and you don't know what the goal is of the company, the vision of the company, you say, why? Or if the vision is not a vision you believe in, like the vision of the company is make the boss rich. That may be a good vision from the boss, but not from your perspective. So you say, I don't like that. I want to be rich too. So you have to have a vision that is good, that is clean, that is something desirable. Decisions should be agreed on by the team. If the team doesn't agree on a decision, they will not support. So in order to get the support of people, people need to agree to things. Balanced participation among members. Remember, we gave you techniques how to balance your... Anyone remember some meeting management techniques by any chance? Oh, now he said, Ajahn, we came here for a review, not to answer a question. Meeting management. Give me a technique to balance participation. Oh, very good. Oh, we have some memory. Okay. No, that's fist to 5 is not to balance participation, but to check whether we have consensus. Very good. But we remember, going back to personality, we have introverted personality and extroverted personality. Extroverts talk, introverts sit and listen, unless you give them anonymous idea cards. And then they can participate through that media of communication, and you have a balanced participation. Okay. Team has methods for managing conflict and so on. I think now clear. Okay, what is the difference between leadership and management? Generally, management likes to keep things stable. Managers are not change agents. Managers are more like your civil servants in government. Managers are people that like to deal with things they already know. But we have always done it like this. It's a tradition in our company to do, versus a leader deals with change. When some of the more successful people, I think, I'm not quite sure who said it, forget if it was Jack Welch from GE or if it was the former HP CEO. So I don't know, so don't quote me on it. But one of these two people said, whatever made you successful in the past will not do so in the future. And that's the reality. If you don't change, if you keep things the way they are, you're going to go sooner or later out of business. Probably in today's environment much sooner than later. Look at Olympia. Fantastic company 100 years ago. Typewriters. Today reduced to nothing. Nokia. Who has a Nokia phone? Nokia. Who has a Nokia phone? Hands up. Nokia, connecting people. Nokia. Who has a Nokia? Okay, good. Nokia was once a company that made rubber boots for the Russian army. Okay. So back in the 50s, you know, they made boots so that the Russian army could actually march. Today, they're the world leader in telecommunication. How did this happen? It happened through leaders that recognized they need to change. So leadership is looking at tomorrow and how to make the company be able to face tomorrow, while managers more look at today and how can we be more efficient, more effective with the resources we have. Leaders and leadership usually inspire people. Versus managers don't really inspire people. Managers are kind of, I have to do that again, you know, company policy. But leaders are like the CEO of Apple Computer, you know, Steve Jobs. He's not a manager, he's a clear leader. Or talk about Bill Gates, the computer nerd turned billionaire. He's a leader, he's not a manager. Both are necessary, however. If a company only has leaders and no managers, guess what? That company ain't going to be successful. Because resources will be blown left, right, and center, and nobody pay. I mean, go back a few years ago to e-commerce. The dot-com boom that became the dot-bomb. When companies went out of business faster than they went into business. Many of these dot-com companies had fantastic visionary leadership. Brilliant stuff. Okay, some of it was not so brilliant, but the majority was brilliant. Okay, but lousy management. And with lousy management, the money that they had was all blown within a very short period of time. Things didn't work, customers got upset, and ultimately abandoned them, and the company went out of business, despite brilliant leadership. You need to have solid management. There was this company that dealt in furniture. You know, you can order your own custom-made furniture online. Brilliant idea. But lousy management. They didn't figure any of the logistical problems. They didn't hire a logistics manager. They didn't hire a warehouse manager. So people ordered, people paid, people didn't get. Because the orders were long delayed, then they were shipped to the wrong address, and so they did more refunds. Then after, I think, about 7 months in business, the volume of refunds had exceeded the volume of new revenue. Imagine that. Isn't that great? So that is a clear case of excellent leadership, very visionary, but very lousy management. Nobody there in the background organizing how the company would actually function. So you need both. Leaders use their vision to identify key problems. As a leader, you fix what you perceive as problems through your vision. You create the vision, and with that vision, moving people along the line of this vision will ultimately fix what you as a leader perceive to be the problem of your organization. Leaders use vision to identify what is important in their lives and in their organization. When you look at vision statements of companies, you will find that most often in the vision statement of companies, you have the personal beliefs of the CEO reflected in them. Because it's very important to them. Like, if you work for Marriott Hotels, Bill Marriott is a Mormon. A very strong believing Mormon. So top management are all Mormon, and his vision of Marriott is very much shaped by his own religious beliefs. That's his prerogative as a CEO and founder of the company. So you want to work for Marriott and you want to be at the top, you better be a Mormon. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. You work for Marriott. Leaders use their values to make difficult decisions. Sometimes, some decisions are very hard to take. And managerial prowess does not allow you to always make the right decision. So sometimes you have to go to your values. What is important to you, your organization, and the lives of the people within your organization? And then it becomes relatively easy to take decisions. So leaders use that quite a lot. Mission, the shared vision of many people operating in an organization. Remember the video about Southwest Airlines? I know it was very American, but the reality is Southwest Airlines is so successful. Why? Because the people within the company are driven by a vision and a mission that makes them work harder, smarter, faster, and better than many other airlines out there. Because they love what they are doing. They identify themselves with their work, and as the CEO, Gallagher, said to the guy interviewing him, if I wanted to put this guy out of business, I would have. Because one of the competitors said, oh, they are nasty, Southwest Airlines, they want to put us out of business. And Kelleher said, no, make no mistake, if we wanted to put him out of business, we would have done so a long time ago. And that was not being proud, that was not threatening, that was a matter-of-fact statement. That is how successful a company can be with driven team members that are part of it. If the people have the right vision and mission, you become almost unbeatable as a company, because it gives meaning to what you do. Think about that. We all would like to think whatever we are doing is important. If I assign work to some of my staff and the work is tedious and it is boring, nobody wants to do it. But if the work is important, you know, they all want to do it because contribute to something. Why do certain people want to be teachers? You know, you go into the private industry, you earn more money. Being a teacher is not about money. Being a teacher is about being able to pass on knowledge. It's the passion to share. And if you don't have it, don't be a teacher. If you have it, please be a teacher, because then you can share something with your student. Even though some of the students are becoming restless and alarms are going off. Here we have, for example, Merck's Thailand vision to exceed customer expectations by innovative and outstanding customer care that is rendered by talented, satisfied employees. In our activities, we focus on care on our customers and our employees in planning, developing, and implementing innovative and outstanding business services. Now, some of you in this room, let me just check. Are you here? No. Sorry, I have to retract statement. But some of the students here at the college, none of them in the room, have met the managing director for Merck Thailand. I brought him in for a class session once. And if you know this guy, you know that this is his personal value. His strong belief that employees must be catered for, employees must be happy, employees must be satisfied in order to be able to satisfy customer. And since he's a perfectionist and believes in perfection, you have exceed customer expectations. And everything this man does in his organization is based on that vision statement. Think about that. During the economic crisis, when many of Merck Thailand's competitors left Thailand, went out of business, he doubled his revenue. Doubled. Today, he has a record within Merck International that is unmatched. He is the only country manager or MD of a country that has had 10 successive years of explosive growth. He started 10 years ago with 100 million baht revenue. Today he's at 1,150 million baht in 10 years. Now you think about that. And during these 10 years he had the economic recession of 3 or 4 years. But he still managed to grow every year. Dramatically. Set smart goals. Goals that are not smart are not worth setting. If your goals are too unrealistic, nobody will work to achieve them because they say, why should I? I'm not going to make it anyway. So please be specific. Goals have to be very, very specific. If they're too broad, you cannot measure them in the end. So they have to be specific goals. They have to be measurable. If you cannot measure a goal, people will say, why should I bother? Because I will not get credit for it anyway. Because we humans, we are driven by credit. They have to be ambitious. I mean, if it's not challenging, people say, oh, that's easy. You know? And then if it's easy, you don't do it. They have to be realistic. So on one side we have ambition. On the other side we have realistic. Now, think of a dog. Okay, when you have a bone. When you hold that bone very high, what will happen? The dog will kind of crouch down with the back legs, look at the bone, the tail will wag, the tongue will come out, but he will not jump, because the dog is smart. The dog knows, I'm only such a little dog, I cannot jump to up here. But the minute you lower the bone a little bit, the dog will jump, even though cannot make the bone, but thinks, I have a chance. So even a dog's brain can evaluate the chances of getting a bone. So we as humans, we are smarter than dogs, we hope. The verdict is out, but we will see in 500 years or whenever. So the point I'm trying to making is this, that if the goal is too ambitious, we won't try, because we said there is no chance on earth. If it's too easy, we are not challenged. We say, this is nothing. And so it has to be somewhere in the middle. The bone has to be set at a certain level that is yet we cannot reach it right away. We have to jump hard to get it, but we can get it. Okay? And of course it has to be time-based, because if I give you, say, okay, this is what you have to do, and I give you no time frame, in 100 years you shall be successful too. So we have to give employees a certain time and say this goal needs to be achieved within this time frame. I think that's fair. That's also part of delegation. When you delegate something, you set a realistic time frame for it. Okay. Okay, here we have some example of goals. Let's talk about the different types of motivations quickly. We have intrinsic motivation, which are motivation that comes from the inside, appeals to an individual's values and satisfaction from pride, self-respect, accomplishment of personal goals. So, for example, some of my students in my classes in POM, they have received what we call love-hate emails, where I told them things that they have done right and things that they have done wrong on their assignments. Takes a lot of work. A lot of work. Sometimes it would be easier just to write one or two things on the paper and hand back the paper in class, and that would save me a lot of time. But actually, it's not about me saving time, it's about you having the benefit of an education. My professional pride is that I can deliver results to the students, so as the student doesn't need to lose face in front of their friends if their grade is not so good, or somebody has a really good grade and their best friend has not such a good grade. It's kind of embarrassing to not show your grade, and it's awkward for the student. Two, it allows me to tell the student when they have done very well, I just say excellent, because no comment. But if they're not done so well, I can tell them, you have to watch this, you have to watch that, you should do this, I recommend that. So I can be quite detailed. Now, when you take this and you take an email per student, about 2 minutes, you got 60 students, that's 120 minutes. Plus some time in between, that's time I don't need to spend. But I spend. Why? Because I'm proud to be a teacher, I like what I do, and I think this is an intrinsic motivator to me. Students are my motivation. I love my students. And in return, I would like to give something back. Okay, whether the students appreciate that or not, I don't know. But at least I appreciate it. And I think I have done a good job. And that's good enough for me. Okay, so that's what an intrinsic motivator is. It's not somebody patting you on the back, but it's doing things that are a little bit harder and take a little bit more time, and nobody says anything, but you're still happy. That's intrinsic. I don't do this because I get more money, because I don't. I get the same amount of money whether I do it or I don't do it. But it's important to me. Okay, like when I go to class, before I go to class, I prepare myself. Even though I've taught POM for a long time, I looked at this review for about 1.5 hours on Wednesday, because I knew I was going to teach it on Sunday. So I have to know which slides I want to skip, what do I want to focus on. This is important to me. Maybe not important to somebody else, but to me it is. So I'm doing it. This is intrinsic, being able to say, I think, not sure, I think I've job well done. Extrinsic motivator is when external factor influence your work, like more money. Always important, money. But, or somebody telling you good job, or increased vacation. Ajahn Philip, thank you.
I heard the word money.
Oh, heard the word money, okay. Talking about extrinsic and intrinsic motivators. So, extrinsic is when you're rewarded by the organization for your extraordinary work, for your commitment, for whatever you have done very, very well. Intrinsic is when you do it for yourself. When you feel this is necessary because I want to do a good job and I firmly believe in this. Intrinsic, extrinsic. The implications for us all are that it's wonderful to talk about extrinsic and intrinsic. But the reality is we must first satisfy our basic needs. If we don't have enough money for food, if we don't have enough money for our apartment, if we don't have enough money for our aircon and our Benz and our... No, I'm kidding. But the point is, people must be secure in their lives first. Okay? And that's when intrinsic can become more important. But employees need to fulfill their basic needs. It's no good to have a great job where you don't earn enough money, so you can never have a car, you can never afford an apartment, you can only eat gai yang and samtam, you can never have oysters and whatever. You also have what, you don't like samtam?
Your accent.
Oh.
She made a face.
It's okay. You're allowed to do that. I promise I will not make faces at your English accent either, okay? How about that for retaliation? Okay.
But you know, there is one exception about your example of intrinsic motivation. Two exceptions about intrinsic motivation. There is one occupation where only intrinsic motivation is needed. There's one occupation where extrinsic motivation in the form of, for example, pay is not relevant. What would that be? Do you think? Teacher? We need to be able to eat. But what occupation? Only intrinsic. Monk.
Yes.
Monk. So it's not true that everybody needs it. Okay. Not everybody. Okay. He came. I can leave.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Ajahn Bobby. How are you? Oh, really? This is a man that loves extrinsic motivation. Okay. Clearly, managers, if you start your career, and I think let's wrap the motivational factors up. If you're a young manager and you start your career, I think extrinsic motivators are very important. Okay, because if you have no money, you cannot be interested in a job. You need an apartment, you want to show your parents you're successful, you want a car, you want some of the basic things, great. As you move through the corporate structure, hopefully upwards and not downwards. If you move upwards through a corporate structure, once you reach a certain point, money becomes less important. For example, time becomes more important. Imagine many CEOs have a lot of money, but they don't have the time to spend it. So while you as a young manager says, oh, I wish I could make $500,000 baht a month. A CEO says, I wish I had one day off. So your focus will shift, okay? And if you work for an organization that never ever allows you to input your own beliefs into your work, after having reached a certain level, you will become very, very unhappy with that organization because, but this is my value. Why aren't I allowed to implement my value in my work? And then you would leave. But there is always a balance. In the beginning of your career, you need to have extrinsic motivation, and towards the end or upper part of your career, you probably need more intrinsic motivation. Managers must also recognize individual differences. Employees differ. A certificate and a pat on the back, oh, job very well done, you know, is not a great motivator to a staff member that earns 4,000 baht a month. But it's a fantastic motivator to somebody that earns 30, 40, 50,000 baht a month or more, because it's recognition. But somebody at the lower end of a scale probably would prefer some cash. Okay, so please don't use one measuring device and say, I'm going to motivate my staff with this. You're going to give everybody an extra day off if they have done that. If you're a Meiban or a driver, this is terrible because you have no money to spend on the extra day off, so you don't want it. So please, managers must recognize that their staff are different and each person is different within that. You need to use goals and feedback to improve individual and team performance. You must set a goal for a team or an individual to achieve and say, this is where I want you to go. This is what I want you to reach. If you don't do that at the outset of something, how do people know what is your level of expectation? Once you have completed it, you have to let the team know or the person know, yes, you have achieved it, or what do you think? Did you achieve it really? You need to create that dialogue where you let people know your opinion, yes, you have achieved the goal, or no, you didn't. You need to link rewards to performance for individual and team. If people perform well, there should be a reward, either, as I said, individually or by team. The rewards must be meaningful and the standard should be perceived as fair. It's very important that the standards for bonus, for example, in many companies this is very unclear, isn't it, Ajahn Bobby? And then people feel very upset. How come she get a bonus but I don't get a bonus? Because it is not transparent. It is not clear. It has never been explained. And then a bonus program can work against you. Because staff members feel, yeah, right, they just do it, they put it on paper so they can pass ISO or they can pass a quality assurance inspection, but actually they don't want to pay bonus. So please, whatever rewards you must have, the standards of achievements in order to get the rewards must be crystal clear. They must be communicated throughout the organization and understood by all team members. Quality starts at the customer. Doesn't matter what we think. You know, we think, oh, we're doing a great job. That's wonderful. What does our customer think? Whatever we think is totally unimportant. The most important judge of quality is our customer. And our customer can be partner in establishing this quality. You've remembered the video of Stu Leonard, the grocery store, where people love to go shopping. The family business that has expanded 22 times in a matter of years. You remember that video? Vaguely? No? It's where you see the bird hugging the children in the beginning. Very American video, very corny, you know. Where they have this huge suggestion box where people put in the suggestions and then they're implemented. Where customers are invited, like every second Saturday they have a group of customers sitting with management to talk about what improvements should be made, blah blah. You remember it now? Okay, very good, thank you. 1 out of 100, very good. You get a special medal. Think of the many times you have gone to a restaurant, you've had something to eat, you didn't like, let's say, the food or service, you mentioned it, and what you got back was nothing. What you got back was a stare, a manager that didn't come, an employee that didn't know how to react to your criticism, and you left with a feeling not so good, right? What if a restaurant would respond to you and will tell you what they're going to do to improve? Would you give that restaurant another chance? Most likely, yes. So, customers, if you integrate them into the process, they're actually quite happy to tell you what they think, and they're quite happy to participate in the development of your quality. Unless you're a restaurant, I know this, I'm not going to say which one, otherwise I have to go to the police station. But there is a restaurant in Hua Hin owned by a German guy, and when he opened, he was great. And 6 months later, because a lot of people came, he didn't pay attention anymore, and then he started to go downhill. And I ate there when he was new, and I ate there a little bit later, and I call him over and says, look, this was bad today, this was bad today, this was this. He says, oh, thank you for telling me, thank you, I really appreciate it. A week later, I go back, same shit. A week later, I go back, same shit. So I call him to the table every time, and I tell him, you know what, I ain't going there no more. Because he is listening, not doing anything. So I said, forget it. So the other day, I drove past it, and when he used to have a full house, at like 12 o'clock lunch, he had 1 table. And my father, who lives in Hua Hin, told me, this guy asked him, oh, I wonder why my customers are not coming back. Because customers have told you what they wanted, but you didn't do anything of it. So he had customers willing to help him, but he didn't integrate them into his process. He didn't listen. So clearly, final accountability, global performance standards, and responsiveness. If you complain and somebody responds to your complaint, you're happy. Just by the fact that somebody has listened and is responding. If you send a complaint letter and you hear nothing for 6 months, you're very unhappy. Also happened with, we don't mention the name, but it's a large airline here in the Kingdom of Thailand. But we don't say any names, of course. Quality starts in the heart of people who make the company. Remember, if people, we talked about that before, if people love what they're doing, they are motivated by the fact. Why are Southwest Airlines employees so motivated? Because they earn more than other employees in other airline companies? No. Because their job is a lot easier than in other companies? No. They have better benefits than other companies? No. But because they belong to the most profitable airline in the world, that's what's motivating them. They say, we are the leader and everybody else is following us. Yes. Yeah, ching ching. It's proud to be not number 2 or number 3, but proud to be number 1 and doing everything they can to keep it like that. Okay, we go through here. Okay, they remember me, company pride, personal pride, do more with less. We are a love team. Okay, wonderful. This is real American, the videos of Southwest Airlines. It's really... Okay, what is world-class service at Motorola? As a company, we must be competitive, 1 person at a time. Each staff member must be as good or better than the best counterpart of that class of job anywhere else in the world. You are only as good as the weakest link in your organization. Don't make no mistake about that. You want to be world class, but you have some staff members that earn 3,500, 4,000 baht. You think you're going to surpass your competition. You believe in Santa Claus. You believe in the stork and the Easter Bunny, because it ain't going to happen. Okay, so every job in your organization and the person that fills that job must be better than the same job in a competitive organization around the world. That's when you achieve world-class service. That's when you achieve world-class perfection in your products. It's the only measuring device you have for quality. It's quite high. Total quality, people-focused management system. Remember when I told you the most misunderstood theory of total quality is probably in Asia, because everybody wants to have TQM, everybody is talking about it, and when it comes to some of the basic principles of TQM, which is empowerment to the employees, which is giving authority and responsibility, companies say, no thank you, not for us, but we want total quality. But if you have employees that cannot participate, you will never have total quality, ever. It's like if you like to play football and you stand at the sideline and some kids are playing but they don't invite you to play. You feel like in your own company you're working, but they don't invite you to play. They don't invite you to think. They don't invite you to participate. Focus on increasing customer satisfaction and reducing costs. Quality does not cost, quality pays. Without quality, you will not be in business in a competitive environment. But if you have quality, you will do both. You will increase your level of customer satisfaction and you will decrease your costs through the efficiency of your operation, through your employees' participation in the organization. A systems approach that integrates organizational functions and the entire supply chain. Stresses continuous improvement, learning and adaptation to change. Just because you're doing a great job today doesn't mean you're going to do a great job tomorrow and the day after. Like Mercedes-Benz back in the late 70s, early 80s, they said, yeah, but we are Mercedes-Benz, we're the best. And they stopped. And they built cars that only people of the age 95 plus wanted. And their profits started to go down, and BMW, and believe it or not, Volkswagen and Audi became a main rival of Mercedes-Benz in Germany. Unheard of in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 50s. But today, even though Mercedes-Benz is a very creative and innovative company once again, they have botched it up in the late 70s and early 80s and opened the door for BMW, Audi, and Volkswagen to be perceived equal. I know here in Thailand, of course, they are not. But in Europe, whether you drive a Volkswagen, an Audi, a Benz, or a BMW is virtually the same thing. So you think about that. That's harsh. And why did that happen? Because no continuous improvement. We are Benz, we are the best. And while they were sleeping, the other people moved ahead. So principles of total quality is customer and stakeholder focus. And here comes to mind, think of the Bangkok Metropolitan Transport Authority. Do they have a customer and stakeholder focus? Think of the buses. You like to ride a bus in Bangkok? Why not? They're not safe. The driver is on Yaba, maybe, some of them. When you see the buses roaring by at high speed, doing crazy stuff in traffic with buses that should have been out of service 30 years ago, belching smoke so that people cough, and you see black smoke coming out. That's not acting responsively. In the Philippines, they have a similar system as here in Bangkok. In Manila, they have private companies taking care of the public transportation. There is one company, they drive white Mercedes-Benz buses, brand new. They started a few years ago, and what they did is they trained their drivers to be courteous, to observe traffic rules. They trained the people that collect the money to be very polite. They only allow enough people in so that they can sit down. Most importantly, they wash their buses inside and out every night. They maintain and service them, and they charge like 50 stang more. 50 stang, the equivalent of 50 stang more per ride. The guy, his business just blew apart because he started with something like 10 buses. Today he has over 300 buses. Because people were willing, even poor people were willing to pay 50 stang more for a safe, courteous ride in a clean environment. So this guy has a customer and stakeholder focus because he ain't polluting the air of Manila. He ain't a public health danger through the way his people drive, and he takes care of his customers. That's what a company has to do these days. Participation and teamwork, very important these days. If you want to get ahead in any organization, if the organization is exposed to global competition, you need to have your employees participate, and you need to have them working in teams. You need to be focused on your processes, because how you do things becomes very important. See the scanners at Bangkok New Airport. The process of procurement wasn't so good. That's why we had all the negative press. And of course, you need to have continuous improvement. Once you think you are top, that's when you have to rethink again and reinvent yourself and continue the cycle of learning and improving. So you have total quality management and corporate re-engineering. You know, there are companies, we have a client, they started 25 years ago here in Thailand. And they kind of just grew from an organization with 150 employees when they started to today 1,300, 400. They have never once gone through a corporate re-engineering. So all of their processes, systems, and policies are dating back to some 20 years ago for 150 employees. It's problematic. So now they have to undergo corporate re-engineering.